Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to our next guest on the 2022 panel of amazing astrologers, speaking all things 2022. So we're really vibing up here, getting you prepared for 2022 with so many incredible astrologers sharing their interpretation of some incredible aspects or transits. And today we have the awesome Kim Fairminer. So she is going to come in and share something really cool, which we'll talk about in a minute. But let's just say hello to Kim. And, you know, the question that I'm asking all of my panelists are definitely, what drew you to astrology and how did it become a part of your life? Was there for some people it's Saturn return, for some people it's been since they were a kid. So have a little share about yourself, Kim, and what you do in your practice and tell us everything, darling.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this wonderful event. How did I get into astrology? I was a bit of a weird little kid. I used to do things like read the telephone book when I get a little bit bored and like just find out about the world through like lists of data. So, you know, and you'd read magazines and there'd be like all this stuff about like celebrities, but I would always go for the horoscopes, like every time, whatever magazine I'd pick up, you know, at my grandmother's house, that, you know, in a waiting room somewhere, because of course this was before the internet. I am of that vintage. And yeah, I just, you know, eventually got curious and, you know, you go to the library and there'd be some astrology books there and it was just a slippery slope. And yeah, then one day I had a friend that said, Kim, I want to, you know, kind of know what you know. I want to take some classes. Where can I go? And I went, what? Yeah, that's a great idea. I should take some classes too. And we did with one of the other wonderful speakers, Babula. So I initially learned with Babula and yeah, I've just, I guess, got like pretty darn nerdy from that point in conferences, other courses. I've popped over to Egypt and looked up at the Dendera ceiling, the replica, because they took the original. Terrible thing. Anyway, yeah, so I can't imagine living my life without astrology now. It's just like threaded through everything I do. And yeah, it's just great. I love that it is so old and so broad and like I'm just never going to know enough. And as a Gemini, yeah, I just love it.
Yes, and as a Mercury in Gemini, hello, domicile here, like fucking I'm exact. Is your Mercury Gemini as well as your sun?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And it just, you know, it really does that curiosity that underpins astrology because of its broadness and, like you said, the ancientness of astrology, eons and eons and eons old. And it's never ending. Like it's literally never, I love that you said slippery slope. Like it so is a slippery slope. And because it is, it's never ending. And I mean, and that's where some people can get like a little bit scared because it seems overwhelming. And really, unless you've got a solid foundation, it is overwhelming. So you need that solid foundation of your own chart and to understand the language so that you can not be overwhelmed by all of the information and all of the transits and progressions and solar returns and all the things that are fancy and great and awesome. But without that solid foundation, that anchor, you know, it can get slipperier than just like a cool slippery dip into the rabbit hole. It can just be like, this is too much because it's a never-ending piece of string, which is what often a very Gemini heavy chart or, you know, Sun Gemini, Mercury Gemini, that interests us. We've got all the tabs open and we're ready to just keep like scrolling through. So thank you so much for sharing, Kim. It's so great to hear everyone's different journeys into astrology. I love it. Like it's my favorite question to ask everyone. And so we're going to dive into a bit of 2022. And when I first approached Kim, she came back with this: how to manage a spiritual hangover, Jupiter in Aries and Mars retrograde. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited. So I'm excited to hear Kim sort of riff on this, these transits and aspects that are happening in 2022. They're pretty big ones. Kim's got a really cool way of weaving these two together that she's going to share with you in a moment, because we do have our other panelists doing a Jupiter in Aries and a Jupiter in Pisces. So we're going to go deeper into Jupiter Aries, Jupiter Pisces. But today it's sort of a bit of a treat, actually. Like as soon as I read that and she explained, Kim explained what she was going to talk about in our messages, I was like, yes, now this is cool because it's not it's very easy for us to go, okay, we're just going to talk this, but Kim's going to weave in some cool little tricks and tribulations of what these two guys are doing, and she shared a little bit before we started recording. So I'm super excited, and I'm going to hand it over to Kim, and we're gonna listen to this pretty exciting spiritual hangover that you call it. So thank you, Kim.
We're not there yet. The party hasn't started as we record. And, you know, I am looking forward to the Jupiter in Pisces party. But also in 2022, we've got Jupiter going into Aries and a Mars retrograde. So like it's a little bit busy. And I actually see 2022 in two distinct halves. You've got all this amazing action with Jupiter mashed up in the first half of the year while Jupiter's living large in Pisces. On the 18th of February, you've got Jupiter sextile Uranus. That is pinging 11 degrees Pisces Taurus. Then on the 13th of April, Jupiter's conjunct Neptune at 23 degrees Pisces. And then on the 4th of May, Jupiter's sextile Pluto at 28 Pisces / Capricorn. So like in the space, like what's that? Like February, March, April, May, like, you know, 3 to 4 months, you've just got bam, bam, bam. Like Jupiter in Pisces is just like off the charts. So generally, like I see this as fairly harmonious aspects. You've got two sextiles and they're a conjunction. A conjunction is a little bit unpredictable sometimes, but a sextile, you've got these feminine signs working together. So it's receptive. It's not kind of like a go-get-em stuff. This stuff's just kind of going to happen, and we're going to like hop in, slip into this Piscean tide and kind of see what happens. So the Jupiter-Uranus sextile is going to be an amazing antidote to that long-running fixed square between Saturn and Uranus. I think even Uranus is tired of prodding Saturn. Probably not. It's probably just me that's tired of that, and Saturn as well. But
yes,
Saturn,
we are actually tired of Jupiter being in Aquarius. To be completely honest, he can fuck right off now.
Well, it's a Saturn-ruled sign. Saturn's had enough. He's happy to move like out of orbit of Uranus. Like it's just, I guess, you know, 2021's been a bit of a hangover itself from 2020. Anyway, change-making, idealistic Uranus is very happy to collaborate with expansive philosophical Jupiter.
Yes.
And I think this is going to be the freedom that everybody has been craving. It's like spacious and fresh, whereas that Uranus Saturn kind of feels like a city. It's very rigid and directed with you know, 90-degree angles and things. This is like, I don't know, busting through a gate and running into the wild. It's that's kind of like the feel that I've got for this Jupiter Uranus. And then that's February. In April, we've got the Jupiter Neptune conjunction. This is like woo. And I'm a little bit shonky on this one for me personally, because you know, as a Gemini, you get the square. Sagittarius will also be getting the square from these planets, and Virgo, if you're Virgo, this is all kind of playing out in your 7th house if you're a Virgo rising. So this is nebulous. It's like a heady cocktail of intoxicating Neptune, and then like Jupiter comes along with all his amazing sprinkles. So I'm neon lights. It's like a frothy fantasy cocktail served by the best looking bartender in the universe. So it's like a wild night out where, you know, there's this sense of expectation. You don't know what's going to happen, but you've got high hopes. It's almost like an irresistible antidote to all that hyper rational stuff that you mentioned with Jupiter in Aquarius and that Saturn ruled sign. Like everything, it's all like science, but it's gone too far into this realm of scientism, and it's got a bit kind of dry and dull and boring, and it's kind of, for me, a massive dumbing down of the full spectrum of human experience. Like we can't really do everything that we want to do right now. So Jupiter Neptune gives us this opportunity. So it's a celebration of imagination, creativity, and oneness. And I think rather than like, because Neptune, sometimes it can be like anesthetic and kind of like dull you down and make you sleepy. But I think this is more kind of going to wake us up to the possibilities, the weird, the wonderful, the visions, synchronicity, dreams. Like all this is going to be kind of activated after this kind of like restricted tunnel vision that we've kind of gone through. So, and as a Gemini, I really appreciate the logical. It's wonderful, but I also appreciate the imaginative. You've got to have both this creativity and the analysis. So yeah, using both sides of your brain, and this is really going to activate that creative side, and it's going to feel good, perhaps a little too good at times.
I love that you use the word like anesthetizing. Like it is very anesthetizing as well. Like, but there is this expansion, and also Katie speaks in depth in one of our, as another panelist, deeply. Her whole segments around Jupiter, Neptune conjunct, and going back and looking. So that was a really beautiful add-in to that, Kim, of what she's spoken about already. So thank you for that. That was really beautiful. Some really great words there for people to pick up on. I know that as Gemini Mercury's, especially, like the wordsmith is our things like landing words that people can anchor in and attach themselves to, like that, like those words that you've just used: irresistible, creative, ecstasy, nebulous, like, they're incredible words. So thank you for that.
I'm actually having a Neptune transit at the moment, like the spur to my Gemini planet. So, and this is part of the reason why I picked like that kind of broad overview, because the details just aren't really there for me right now.
That's my entire life. I've got Neptune in the fucking third house. Details and me, they don't even go near each other. So yeah, feeling you there, babe.
I think, yeah, so that kind of like is pretty much all of April. So I don't know if Easter is in April next year, but things could
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, it's only like a couple of weeks later, the 4th of May, that we have that Jupiter sextile. This is quite different. I get, because like Neptune and Pluto tend to travel in a loose sextile generally at the moment. So I get a dynasty vibe from this transit. I don't know why. I was like, preparing for this, and I'm like, Joan Collins. Like high cheekbones, high shoulder pads, stratospheric confidence. Like she had it all. And I had a really quick look at her chart. It is amazing. Really, really strongly Moon Mercury. She was born in 1933, and weird synchronicity in the opposite sign. So this Pluto Jupiter arrangement is in Pisces and Capricorn. She has the sextile loosely between Pisces and Pluto in Cancer and Virgo, so on the opposite side of the zodiac. So that was just like a really kind of amazing little synchronicity there. So anyway, she was known, Joan Collins, as the vengeful schemer, according to IMDb, Alexis in Dynasty. And I think with this combination of Jupiter and Pluto, there's a little bit of that orchestrated social transformation. It's got like a bit of ambition attached to it from that Pluto in Capricorn. And wherever Pluto lurks, there's dark truths to be faced. So those don't go away when Jupiter comes along. But I think Jupiter promises that the Plutonic catharsis will bring meaning and growth and understanding. I am optimistic. So I also think that there's like something about wealth here and the global economy. And I'd like to think it's, a recalibration for greater equity. But things just might get more expensive. People are being kind of let out. They could probably, hopefully, will be able to go places, do things, and they're probably just going to splash the cash. And I think, demand, supply, all that's going to get a little bit fruity around this May thing. But for people personally, you can use this to reflect and push forward with your goals. So anyway, that is my take on, what Jupiter's up to in that first half of the year. You've got Jupiter high on freedom, Jupiter high on whatever he can get his hands on, and then Jupiter high on power.
Love it. That's so good. Love that. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, but that just gets it to May. The second half of the year pretty much starts then, because just days after that Jupiter sextile Pluto, Jupiter leaves the home sign of Pisces. It happens right at the end of those feminine signs, and he sparks up for a new adventure in Aries on the 11th of May. So out of mutable water into cardinal fire. But that's quite a contrast. Like Pisces is the end. It's kind of like letting go, going with the flow. Aries is the start. He's like independent and he's a little contrary. So outside of his home sign, because Pisces is the home sign of Jupiter, and he's been very self-sufficient there. But once Jupiter pops over into Aries, he's no longer that self-sufficient perpetual motion dream machine. Jupiter is forced to look to the ruler of Aries, Mars, for direction. Like it's almost like he has to get permission, or he's waiting for supplies from Mars before he can sort of, fully do his thing in Aries.
Yeah.
So they're traveling pretty close together. Mars actually moves into Aries on the 25th of May. So just a couple of weeks later, and there's a conjunction at the end of May. That will be fun. So Mars is moving pretty quickly as well. So May feels incredibly exciting, and you'll be ready to strike out on your own and like do stuff. Like it's really, let's get cracking. Let's like bolt out of the gates and off you go. So Mars roughly spends 6-ish weeks in a sign generally, and he is in Gemini in August, and then the sun moves through Virgo and then Libra. And when the sun and Mars are in roughly a trine across those air signs, that's like a little flag, if you see that in a chart, that the planet's slowing down is going to change direction. So that's like a little visual check that you can do. So this tells us that Mars is about to go retrograde in Gemini. And this is the start of your spiritual hangover. Headaches, lack of productivity are pretty likely when Mars is slowing down, and staying spiritually hydrated will be essential. So this Mars retrograde starts on the 30th of October and takes us right into mid-January of 2023. And the section of Gemini that it starts at 25 degrees, goes back to 8 degrees Gemini. So, fun times for me, fun times for your Mercury, Tiarnie.
Oh, no, I'm lucky. I'm just out. I'm a 1 degree Mercury Gemini, so I'm sweet.
Oh, no, I'm so jealous. Mars retrogrades are... I don't know, they're sludgy. I often find them anyway. So when Mars is retrograde, there's this tendency to act and react to situations in unfamiliar or awkward ways. And your sensitivity levels, Mars, if you think of it like a weapon or like some kind of trigger, the sensitivity levels on that instinctive reaction to danger, threats, and confrontations, it's either dialed up too high or dialed down too low. So it's kind of not set right. And then that trigger goes off unexpectedly, or it fails to fire when required. It's too fast, not fast enough, it's angry, or you can't find an outlet for your anger and you end up keeping it all inside. It can be really impatient and just like, oh my God, how much longer? And actually, what was that? Like that's Mars retrogrades months and months and months. That's how much longer. It's months. So the best thing you can do is like notice the reactions and what they're telling you, particularly in Gemini, watching your mental processes. So watch what you're telling yourself and others, and potentially what you're yelling at yourself and others. In Gemini, Mars uses words as its weapon of choice. So keyboard warriors are pretty likely to be out in force in late 2022. Probably, I don't recommend that you join them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mars doesn't have much dignity in Gemini. He's like very busy. He doesn't know what to do. So he's just busy doing like a lot of things. He really needs a mission. And in Gemini, there's just too many options. So get curious, but look inside for your answers. I would think like, have you hung out, had a conversation with like about a 6-year-old, and that you tell them something and they go, but why? And then you explain, and then you go, but why? Why? And like, this is kind of like what Mars is looking for in Gemini. Like, why? It wants to know more. But all the myriad options that Gemini offers, they're just not going to be enough. This Mars can't possibly be satisfied. So meanwhile, Jupiter is still in Aries, wondering like where his supplies are. He's waiting for like permission, activation from Mars, because Mars is the boss of Aries. Jupiter's full of ideas. He's got things he wants to do there. But Mars is busy contemplating his own navel and fighting with strangers on the internet. So basically, Jupiter, like, he's harking back to the good old days of those early months of the year when he's living large with his high-power planetary mates, and Jupiter's out of there. Like, he's retrograde back into Pisces just days before the Mars retrograde station starts.
Very fascinating.
It really is. It's almost as if Jupiter disapproves of, what Mars is about to do in Gemini, and like kind of sneaks out the back door and just cuts him loose. So whoever or whatever you were about to go all in on kind of ghosts you around that time. Like, things are really going to stall. In September, there's a sextile between Mars and Jupiter, but I just don't see these two planets actively cooperating in 2022. Jupiter in Pisces gives us that much needed spiritual lift after 2020, 2021. And Jupiter really has that potential to renew our enthusiasm, our lust for life, and our personal drive. But that feeling of walking on air and believing you can do it, it's not forever. Like, there's no real documented evidence of boots on the ground. So Jupiter starts this story in 2022, but he doesn't really gather momentum until 2023. So it's going to be harder to find that high level of faith, the high level of self-belief, and just that sense of lift in that second half. Like, it's in bucket loads in the first half of the year. Like, it's so optimistic and so full of self-belief. So really squeeze that last bit of Jupiter and Pisces goodness out. And like, if you do some magical work, conjure up some materia magica, and you can pop like a little bit of Jupiter in your handbag, like a Jupiter oil or a talisman or something. That's a fun little thing to do. And I think it will just help you kind of like connect back to your sense of self-belief in that second half of the year through this like little item. So it's really not just enough to imagine that better world, though. You've got to create it for yourself. So to tie it all back in with my amusing metaphor for this chat, like, it's like, after you've had a big night out, you've had this wonderful time, like the morning after, eventually you've got to fire your enthusiasm up. You've got to find your sunglasses and drive to Macca's. Like, an imaginary burger does not cut it. It's not going to help your hangover. You've actually got to do something. And this is kind of like that awkward transition phase in 2022. Like, if you've chased the peak experiences too heavily in the first half of the year, they're not going to drag your ass over the line in the second half of the year. Like, even the after party eventually ends. Jupiter in Aries wants you to lead from the front and inspire us all to take bold action. But the Mars retrograde means that quick start doesn't sustain itself. And so ultimately, this weird dance between Jupiter in and out of Aries at the same time as the Mars retrograde starts is self-belief. Each of us needs to independently back our beliefs in ourselves and grab the opportunities that are presented to us boldly with assurance. You need to believe in yourself, because that true high, you don't get it outside of yourself. You don't get it from other people. Yes, there are collective resources, but ultimately it's within, and it comes from living authentically, living passionately, and living and acting in true alignment with yourself. And yeah, this is something that's going to be continued in 2023. And my hot tip for 2022, particularly that second half, is to stay hydrated.
Yeah, on all levels, spiritually, mentally, all the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I've just checked it. January, like when Jupiter's back in Aries, you know, building to actually, you know, because Mars is at those early degrees finishing his retrograde, right? So the support comes, but in January of 2023. So everything that you've just sort of, everything that you've just sort of said, it's just like it's all there. And for me too, the Gemini archetype is to use the discernment. We still want to be practical, and Mars there can be too scattered and too many options. And I am really fundamentally asking people to watch your mental health in this Mars retrograde next year, because it's going to be a doozy. And I'm thinking Jupiter moving back into Pisces will square Mars Gemini.
It doesn't quite, it doesn't perfect.
Okay, well that's okay, but it's, you know, there's still this air of, it feels like we've just finally sort of moved out of a little bit of the mutable stuff with the node shifting, but then these two come in, you know, the Jupiter and Pisces and Mars Gemini. It's like, well, they're strong themes for the year, and I really, really love how you've melded them together and separated the year in halves for us to all really see how we can work with the Jupiter too. And I've really, really loved all of that, Kim. It was amazing, really helpful.
Yeah, it will play out differently for each of us. So yeah, looking at where these signs are in your chart will tell you which houses are activated, and also just where it's going to be a little bit awkward. I just see it as like just this Jupiter Mars thing. It just doesn't quite come together like you so want it to. It's just there, and then it's almost like Mars goes, nah, later, dude. January 2023.
Exactly. That's right. Like January and February, we've got, you know, Jupiter moving from, you know, that 3 degrees, then even like 9 degrees, and Mars is there at 14. So he's still in shadow, but like he's starting to move forward. He's a bit quicker than Jupiter, obviously, but you know, there is this, you know, it's maybe a little bit of a wide orb, but there is a sextile going on with Jupiter in Mars's home sign. So, but this is 2023, so we do definitely have to dredge out the 2022 first. But
it's almost like you can smell the breeze, or like it's like this sense of anticipation. It's so close, but it just doesn't quite come together. And I think patience is going to be a thing. Jupiter in Aries will want fast results. Mars in Gemini, sure as shit, will want fast results.
Exactly.
So like, I think coming back to the node that you mentioned, that slow, steady North Node in Taurus will be potentially helpful, although Uranus is there too.
I'm excited about that.
Give yourself time. Give yourself time to manifest the extent of changes you want to make.
Yes, and because I've just written here mental recklessness, you know, like jumping the gun, baby out with the bath water. You know, we will go into a Mars retrograde Gemini deeper on the panel as well with either myself or someone else. I want to cover some topics too, but there can be that mental restlessness, and you know, Jupiter loves to be in Pisces and gives us that hope and optimism. So it really is a beautiful first half as you really helped us digest, Kim, like the words and definitely those aspects that you've nutted out for us. Amazing reference points. Like this is what this panel's about, is giving the reference points so people can start looking at how they can utilize the transits of next year. But yeah, Mars in Gemini is a whole whirlwind of chaotic wind. It's just going to be a windy, wild weather. But the way that you've sort of like really pulled these two together, I've just written, I love the interpretation of the way you've weaved these. It's like two Lego pieces or a puzzle piece that's just not fitting in, right? Like it's
you're working it, you'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. You're really pushing down on that Lego piece. You're like, damn it, it's not the right fit. So
well, you have to like leave them back off, and the bloody thing's stuck, and you got to get your fingernail in there.
That's right. That's exactly right. So super amazing, Kim. Like, thank you so much for giving us some really great meat to chew on, because that is going to be extremely helpful. And I think that how to manage a spiritual hangover is totally what we're going to call this segment, because that really does resonate and land with because Jupiter and Aries, for me, I'm super excited about that transit. But what you've also given is this other aspect as well, with obviously Aries ruler and the retrograde and all the things. And it's just like, yeah, we've really got to. That's what's so great about all of you beautiful panelists. You all have your own charts that you lens astrology through, and that's why listening to many astrologers and working with many astrologers, reading, everyone says, what sort of book? I say, every astrology book. Go and buy all the books. Like, I don't just have one specific author. Like, I have all of them because they all come from their own lens. So
yeah, your Mercury and Gemini showing.
All the books. I keep, it's that whole like, oh, order 10 more astrology books. Flick through each of them and then put them on the shelf. It's like, fuck, I just want to ingest all of the information. But yeah, anyway, no, amazing, amazing. So absolutely honored to have you on this panel, Kim, and sharing something really tangible for us to work with in that sort of 2-half segment, really looking at Jupiter and Mars. So thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to listening to all the other panelists. Thank you for bringing us together.
Oh, it's been a deep honor. I look forward to. I think that maybe this is your little thing. Maybe in 2023 it might be something that you can riff on now with the Jupiter and Mars come early 2023. Something to think about.
Yeah, maybe. More work, more writing. Let's get into it.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of this beautiful panel of astrologers. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.